Business Takeout presents
The Cocktale Hour with L.A. Wade.
What's up, everybody? It's your girl. This is L.A. Wade, aka Cocktails with L.A. And I'm here in the Cocktale Hour to have a very special, sobering yet intimate conversation with this guy right here. His name is Wesley Louie. He is the director and co-founder of the Line Animation, and I can't wait to talk about that. But before we go into that, I have to do some house cleaning. I want to give a shout out to Business Takeout, who inspires Black wealth and Black entrepreneurship right here through this programming. And we're so grateful for all of you who donate to the cause. So keep doing so. She needs it. The other thing I want to say is Banky Designs has been really great in terms of what we've been able to do with our branding here at the Cocktale Hour and Cocktails with LA in particular. So Banky Designs, show everybody why they should work with you. Wow, that commercial is always so riveting to me.
It's very intense.
Very intense. Like, you better work with me today. Welcome, Wesley Louie, director, co-founder to the Line Animation, and just, I think, on the low, like a dope guy. I think you're very deeply introspective and amazing, and I want everyone to find out exactly what that's about in this conversation.
Okay, no high expectations then. Thanks for having me.
On your followers, I think you have your own glory of people that are into what it is that you do.
Yes, we've been going for a few years, so yeah, we've made a bit of a name for ourselves out there, which is still quite surreal actually when I meet people from overseas and they know who we are. It's still quite strange there, sort of thing.
Well, I'm sure you didn't start doing it so that people wouldn't know. So at least you're going in the right direction.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, it is nice that people know what you're doing. They appreciate your work, But again, it's just anytime anyone says like they know I work or they've seen my work before,
right?
It's always strange to
I know what you mean. I just want to give a shout out to the LinkedIn user. I can't see you. I really like when they say hi and they make comments so that I know that they're there. This program is distributed on many different platforms, so we can't always garner who's watching from where unless they say something. So it's nice when somebody says hi, even though we can't see your name. Anyhow, I want to get into, I always ask the question, how did you get here? But before you even answer that, just based on how you answered the first question, you seem, where you said it was surreal for you. You seem so humble, and to talk about your successes is like, it's a big deal. I don't know. Yeah. How do you remain so humble?
I don't know. It's I guess maybe like I don't know. Animators, I suppose, can be quite self-deprecating, I suppose, but I think it's because I still have heroes in the industry that are doing things that I haven't done or haven't been able to achieve yet. So I think maybe that's what it is, like I'm looking at some of the great animators, great animation studios out there, like, Studio Ghibli, Trigger, and, even as big as Disney, Pixar. So that's why I don't really see us in the way that maybe some other people might see us.
Could you say that you have like a bigger underground following versus a mainstream following, and maybe that's where the surprise comes from?
I think that's what it is. Yeah, generally, I think we are definitely quite well known in the animation industry. I mean, outside of that, I'm not entirely sure. I kind of like it that way, to be honest. So, but yeah, like I said, when I'm speaking to people, whether it's online, if I meet people in person, or you go to an animation festival, they know who you are.
Exactly.
It's very strange. Like, people are like, yeah, I've been following you since this time, and I started animation because you started doing this. I was like, okay, it's good
Right?
to hear that I have that. Yeah, that kind of impact. But I guess
Yeah.
I have people that have influenced me. So yeah.
Well, you're also a good, it looks like you're a good study. Like you do your work, you do your homework, and it's reflected in the work that you do. And it's very clear your passion, the way that you communicate who you are with the people that do or are interested in what it is that you do. You're really great about revealing process and just like the way that you see the world. Like I think back and I smile because I read a lot of the little clips that you put next to the posts that you make, and even that is it's loaded with a whole bunch of like innuendo, and like it's like if they're following you and you have a following of people that know you, they're gonna get
Mm.
those nuances that you put out there. And I think that's a really cool way, whether you did that on purpose or not, or maybe it's just a part of that's how the anime world kind of works. I think it's dope that you've been able to translate that.
Yeah, maybe. I'm definitely not shy about my influences or I get. I mean, I've not been on. I mean, I do. What I tend to do on social media right now is mostly Instagram. I just post in my stories other people's work, that I might see. I'm like, oh, this looks really cool. Let me share it with everyone else. There's been a few people complaining, it's like, why aren't you posting any of your other work? I'm like, I'll post when I have something to say, I suppose. But
Well, that's a good
yeah.
segue. What's the grand mighty Piton?
um, so the Mighty Grand Piton is an idea that I had. So I was working on a commercial project actually, and it had a lot of giant robots. You can actually see it on our website. But I think during that period, I was doing a lot of when I'm directing. I tend to. So what I do at the studio is I direct like shorts, like for either music videos or commercials. But mostly it's been like for game trailers and stuff. And these things usually go out online. So I was doing a game trailer for a company, and uh, it had lots of giant robots in it. And just as a joke, I did like not a joke, but I was kind of just doodling and in between meetings and stuff, and I drew this kind of robot with a little kid, and the robot kind of had the colors of the St. Lucian flag, and then I just made up a little story sort of thing, just talking about how this robot's from St. Lucia, so that's where my family's from, if you haven't guessed, and it speaks only in Creole, and I put a hashtag, Caribbeans like robots too, something like that, and then I think from then it just got me thinking. It's like, why haven't I made something like that? I mean, I've always wanted to make something in the Caribbean or based on the Caribbean, but like specifically where I'm from, where my parents are from.
Right.
But I think the idea was always going to be something, maybe like some sort of social commentary or talk about, something quite boring actually. And I grew up watching a lot of anime, and I'm into Saturday morning cartoons and Thundercats and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, why does it have to be like why can't it be something fun? And I just took the idea from then.
I love it.
Yeah, and it was just one of those things where at the studio we like to kind of we want to make like longer form ideas, but that can be very expensive and very lengthy, especially when you're self-funding it. So we try to either do something really short or like maybe take the best bits of an idea and just kind of put it into like a trailer form or a montage or like a fake intro or something like that. So we can kind of get the idea out, and then if at some point in the future we want to flesh it out, we can do that. So that's I think that's what happened with Piton, and it was just a lot of fun to make. I had a really good response from it, from not just from Caribbeans actually, from everyone everywhere, saying, "Oh, I didn't know this was allowed," which is crazy. yeah, because it's like you're. I mean, as the world becomes a bit more progressive, I suppose, and people from different cultures and walks of life are starting to be able to see themselves on the big screen and stuff. It's becoming more common, but it's like, oh wait, you can have an anime or alien thing happening in the Caribbean. It doesn't always have to be in America where the White House is or something like that, you know.
Right.
And
It's
yeah.
funny. It's funny that you say that, because I know somebody specifically that follows the line from here he did the cover of my book. His name is Joseph Bonsu, and he's created here something called Heroes of the World. And he has like a animated superhero figure draped in the colors of that country's flag. And so in that way, every country that exists that has a flag, that's their hero, and they have something that they can look to that's representative of that place. So when you do something for St. Lucia where you come from and you make it in such a mainstream way, I love that. It's like telling stories and you just happen to be Black, or you just happen to be from St. Lucia because that was your
Yeah,
love.
and that's exactly what it is. And it's like I notice with animation as well, sometimes, I mean, if you go to the Caribbean, they've got loads of stuff. I grew up in London. I was born and raised in London, even though my family's St. Lucian. I was raised by St. Lucian parents.
Right.
I was born here. So I'm fortunate that I have maybe access to kind of people and things that maybe people from those places don't actually have yet. But yeah, they've got stories, they've got their own identity and stuff. It's just that they just don't have the I guess the teachers or lecturers.
Yeah.
Or even the experience that they can
Yeah.
take these stories to like to compete on a world stage sort of thing.
That's like the beauty of what you did, is like we can't remember things that we haven't experienced. We don't know how to imagine something that we don't know or haven't been exposed to. And so the exposure of it and hearing the music, that meant so much to you to be able to make a part of the project so that it's reflected. They may not have seen it outside of you showing it to them.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's like you take something of your of your culture and you just kind of present it in a way that we're just not used to seeing. I think it's happening more and more. So I think Black Panther is a prime example of that. I would say even with the Into the Spider-Verse movies that came out as well. That's like again
Huge.
telling stories from our community on like the highest level possible. And I think that's how I want to present it. And I'm actually very adamant that if this goes to series, which is something that we're working on, everyone keeps asking me like, "Oh, what's happening with the series and stuff?" I'm like, this takes a lot longer than I expected to even like get development deals and that kind of stuff. But I think it's one of those things where the quality has to be as high as I possibly can get it, because I don't want people to associate the Caribbean with that, with something that's maybe like that can't compete on the world stage.
Right. I love.
I mean, we've got music and acting covered. All of that is covered, so we're fine. Animation, like, there's work to be done, and I'm happy to be part of that.
That's amazing. You should. Well, I don't want to tell you what to do, but I would love if there was like something we were doing with young animators or people who could dream that for themselves, to get the chance to work with you in like a lab for a certain period.
I'm working on it. I am working on it. I have spoken to actually a couple companies. There's one in Jamaica called Listen Me, and another one in Trinidad. Rene Holder, he's out there. So he's I've been speaking to them and seeing what we can do. I don't think it's going to happen overnight, but
and when other things get in the way, it's also hard to prioritize with everything else that you have to do. So I get that, but that's a really great dream to dream. I think that's cool. So I go back to my initial questions. How did you get here?
How did I get here? So that's a long story. I actually started animation quite late. I mean, I've always, as a child,
You said always you like animation. Not to cut you, but you said you always like animation. So talk to me about how you fell in love with animation. What was the first thing you saw?
I can't remember the first thing I saw, but I suppose my earliest memories is probably like just watching Saturday morning cartoons with my dad. So things like Thundercats and Centurions, and there's loads from back in the day, E-Man. Um, so yeah, from like maybe 4 or 5 years old, I was always into that stuff, and I've always been drawing, from a young age. So more or less self-taught. Um, I don't like using the word self-taught because I'm always learning something from someone else. So, but let's say my drawing ability hasn't come from an institution as such. I didn't go to.
It's funny because my son is 10 and he loves to draw. And since he was little, he could draw, but it would be, you can see the structure of what he's drawing. But then one
Yeah.
time I put him in front of YouTube and he followed somebody giving the animation of how to create a cartoon character. And when I looked at it, I was like, my thought was, who did that? Like, there's no way that the structure of it could jump so high. It just meant that he could understand the instruction and follow the instruction and be able to do it. Were you like that as a child? Were you able to, what was the jump in your ability to draw? And what was that for you?
That's a really good question. I think today, I think it's so much easier to learn that stuff because, like you said, YouTube. There's
Yeah.
so many like tutorials out there now. Like, I would have gone crazy as a child if I had that kind of resource. But I suppose I know what I used to do is I used to like just watch stuff over and over again. It's like my mum could put on a Disney movie for me, and I would watch that movie about 3 or 4 times in one day. Like, and I would I remember like watching it, or I'd like record things in the morning every Saturday morning and have a tape full of this stuff as well. And I'd play it and I'd pause it and I'd draw from it and I'd play it again. And so it's just more I think it's just more repetition. I didn't register it as me learning at the time. It was just fun to do. I didn't register it as me like taking something and practicing,
Yeah.
doing it over and over again. I would draw the same thing over and over again till I got it right, sort of thing. So again, it wasn't something that was taught to me. It was just one of those things where I was having fun. But looking back on it, I mean, even like when I was younger, I used to like make my own comics. And I was saying I actually did a talk on this in London a couple of years ago. But I would do a comic and I'd get to like, I'm drawing it out and I'd get to page maybe 5 or 6. But as I'm doing it, the drawings are getting better and better. So I'd always start again because I'm like, oh, the first drawing isn't as good as the last drawing. So I'd keep doing this thing over and over again. So like, I remember talking to one of Hans about it. So that's crazy you would do that. But I didn't register it as me like learning. I just took it as me like, oh, this isn't good. Let me try again.
Right.
And I think that repetition is the thing that kept making me get better. I would say trying to draw your own comic book is probably, at least for me personally, is the way I got better at drawing because you're not just drawing one thing, you're drawing everything,
Right. Hi, Gary. We see you, Gary. That's really cool. You said something recently in an interview when you were talking to someone about Katsuka.
Katsuka. Oh yeah, the receipts.
Yeah, so it's funny that you were just talking about that, reflecting on your process, and you talked about how this website was such a resource for you as an animator.
Oh, Katsuka is amazing. When did I discover? I feel like I discovered Katsuka maybe in my early 20s, late teens. I can't remember exactly when, but I know it's probably close to. So what it's got, and he's still going now. Like
Wow.
the site is what it does is that it would collect an archive of. He would just collect animation. So any short animation, he put it on there, and there's a section in it called it's in French. I think it says Jenga or Jenga or something like that. But I don't know if that's a French word. I think it's more of a Japanese word. But there's a section of it, and you've got like what we call model sheets. So basically, a model sheet is when you're doing an animated character, you would have like a model where you have them from the front, the back, the side, what the expressions are doing, and you'd have it from multiple model sheets from different cartoons, like
Wow.
loads. There must be at least 200-300 on there, and I would go through and save them. So it kind of taught me how people would, these like professionals would break down this kind of stuff. And this is way before I even started animation. It was like I would find them like fascinating to look at, and I would like just download all of them and like study them to bits, and
Yeah.
So but that's like an amazing resource for animators, I think. And he just does it free because he just loves it.
Yeah.
I think he's been going for over 20 years.
That's what you had said. And you said that you were there for almost, 17 of the 18 that you said when you posted it.
Yeah. And I'm yet to meet him. I keep missing him. So there's this animation, his name's Mark, but it's an animation festival in France it's in Annecy, and it happens every year. And I've been there while he's been there, but I keep missing him. I have to meet this guy in person.
Okay, well, I have him here waiting in the room to talk to you right now. I'm just kidding.
That's
how those shows would go.
Exactly. I start crying.
We'll have to do this over again. Now that I know what you mean.
That'd be hilarious.
That would be hilarious. Okay, so this show is about inspiring Black wealth and Black entrepreneurship. And sometimes as a Black entrepreneur, the wealth part takes a little bit of while to kick in.
Yeah.
But I was hoping that you could share a little bit about the process. Like I broke down an animator's process, and I don't know this. This is just something that I researched. It said there's the creative visionary, there's the creative process. Then they said story, teamwork, express yourself, be prepared, budgets and schedules, and you're only as good as your last gig. This is what this thing said. And I was hoping you could comment or share stories or insights into parts of all of those. So if we started with creative visionary, let's say, I'm assuming that is the director and that is who you are. So, and then the project that you're choosing to work on.
I'm learning something from you. Yeah, that's an interesting way of, I suppose. I mean, all right. So our studio has predominantly has only really done short form content.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only kind of narrative driven thing that I didn't direct it personally. So one of my colleagues, Sam Taylor, he was directing it. It's called it was like a little web series for the car company Acura.
Yeah.
Right. So it was like a 4-part mini series. Like each episode was like a minute long.
Right.
Chronicling this girl like Jackie, who wants to kind of learn how to be a racer like her father before her. It actually did really well actually online. It got like a lot of views and a lot of traction. So that's the only kind of, from what I remember, maybe it's not the only narrative driven one, but it's definitely the one that's got voices, because most of the things we do, like the characters aren't talking. There is some sort of a story in there or some sort of a concept that we go through, but it's usually like 2 or 3 minutes long. So you have a lot to say in a very short amount of time. And that's how we.
Yes. So when you became a director, it would almost seem like you had more to say, or you saw bigger than what you were doing before. How did you make that jump from illustrator to director?
I guess that's a really good. Everyone asks that question, and I haven't had a definitive answer. I remember I used to ask that question before I was directing. I used to ask that question to people, and no one gave me the same answer. Everyone had a different answer, right?
Right.
I know that the way to become a director, from my personal experience, is just to direct something, make something. And I think with technology now and YouTube and all that, you actually there are now more gates than gatekeepers, and I think you just have to make stuff, right? So some people want to wait for till they have the best camera or the best actor and stuff. So actually, your ideas, I think your ideas and your is so much more important than the execution. I mean, the execution is important, but if you've got something, an idea that someone can like, gravitate to. I mean, look at Insecure as an example. That started off as a YouTube series, right?
Yeah.
And it's not like the best production quality, but the ideas were all there. All the kind of framework was there. And so the way I would say I became a director, because I thought you have to kind of go to a studio and then you work as an animator for a while and you work your way up. And I think a lot of people do it that way.
Yeah.
I think with myself and one of my business partners, Timothy McCall, we actually made a short film. It's funny, we made a short film. We got some funding from the Westminster Arts Council. So they were handing out funding for people to make short films. And we did the short film thinking it would take us 3 months. It took us about a year to make. And they gave us like four grand for it. Me and him, we didn't get any money for it.
$4 grand.
Yeah, it was nothing, right? But at the time, it was like, oh my God, we got 4 grand to make a film. So we were able to pay people a little bit, but we didn't get any money ourselves. And we kind of made the film. Sometimes we had to stop to take on freelance work so we could tie ourselves over and go back again. So when we made the film, we're like, it got good traction online, did really well. We was really happy with the numbers. And then we naively kind of just went to studios, right, we want to direct, here's our film. And it's like, doesn't quite work that way, like sort of thing. Like, so, but what it did do was kind of introduce people to our work at different points in our life. So I got hired at a place called Nexus. I was freelancing there for about a year. So it's like a big animation studio in London. And I think Tim was working at another place, a production company called Partisan. So we actually got work for it, just not directing work. But then what happened off the back of that, where we made the film, we was actually making it in the studio at Partisan in like the basement. And a lot of the runners there and all the people that were working there at the time, they saw us making it. And those same people, they started their own production company. So they got a job in from a Ministry of Sound to do like a music video. And they remembered me and Tim. And they were like, oh yeah, you guys want to direct this animated thing? It's like, yeah, sure, okay, we'll jump on it, sort of thing. And we just happened to be sharing a studio space with like the 4 other guys, which are now all the line. And they jumped on it. And I think that was our second directing gig. And then from then, we just kept getting jobs in. So it's not like, it's a bit unconventional, I think, in the way that we did it. But I know it stemmed from us just making stuff in our own spare time. So even two of the other guys, Sam and Bjorn, they were making their own short film. They were just finishing up just as we got this kind of Ministry of Sound gig.
Yes.
And so they were making their own film as well. So we worked so well together, we kind of formed a collective called The Line, which is now our company. But everything we got, it was all directing gigs because it's like people just associated our name with those films that we made. So that's how I got into directing. Like, everything I did actually was it never professionally, everything for other companies I did animation and maybe a little bit of character design. But everything outside of that has always been off of from my own company or my own back or something. Like even most of the films I worked on, I did all the character designs for it. I storyboarded it as well.
Yeah. It's kind of like your blueprint, right? That's kind of, if I watch something and I can tell, oh, Wesley had his hand in that, you can just kind of start to see it. So, and if you're always working with the same group of people, then you create a fingerprint in a sense, or a watermark at the very least to say, we're in here. And then people come to you because they know what they're going to get. Even if they have their own ideas, there's something about what you guys are doing that they want to incorporate into what they are doing.
Yeah, I think that's true. I'm still yet to know what
that
my
is.
style is. People say, I can tell your work. I'm like, I don't know what my work looks like. Like when I look at my work, I'm looking at an amalgamation of all my influences. Where someone else is saying, no, you've got something distinctive. I'm like, okay,
But
if you
I
say
think,
so.
well, one of the words that I wanted to bring up for you is teamwork and what that means for you. And I really feel like, because there's so many times you've shown me things that you've done, and I'm like, this is so dope. This is so crazy. But then you show me something else, and even if it's a different story, there's still that thing to it. So either it's a combination of who you are and how you're able to relate that to the people that work with you, because there's definitely a communication that's taking place between your vision, which is why it makes sense for me to see you as director, because I think you've been directing the whole time. It's because of how you learn your craft. In a
Yeah.
sense, you're doing it over and over again. Take another, that the comic book becomes the cuts. No, do that again. No, go fix that.
Yeah, it's definitely you don't have the answer. You get the answer for what you're doing right at the end. If
Yeah.
that, like, it's always like iterations of something. You show it to your partners and stuff, and they're like, no, that's not quite right. That's no, fix that or change that. And yeah, animation is definitely collaborative. I know there's a lot of people, especially when they come out of university and stuff, they want to make their own film and make their mark and stuff, and it's like, you know, it takes ages to do this stuff, and you need a team. You need a team of people that do things that you can't do, that are better than you at certain things, and
Yeah.
and you just have to be able to direct them accordingly, and also just listen to their feedback as well. Sometimes someone will say something to you, and you're like, you have a bit of a back and forth, and you're like, actually, their way of doing it is better than what I initially kind of proposed. So
Yeah.
um,
Where did you get this, like, or do you remember how it was when you first started to trust the choices you would make in your directing, or in your ability to communicate your vision? I'm
that's a
putting you on the
really good.
hot seat, right?
No, but these are good. They're good questions. When was I don't know if that's I don't know if that's ever. There's certain things I'm sure about. Maybe in terms of a technique or
Mm,
something that I know I can refer to in my mind, like, oh, I saw this in Akira, or I saw this in Dragon Ball, or but in terms of like the personal stuff, like the idea,
yes.
you're just not sure. You just have to. The most I would do is do I like this? Am I excited by this? Like, I did uh, we did a short called Ninja Super Turbo Atomic Ninja Rabbit. So that was based on a comic I did when I was like 13 years old.
With what's her name? Rena May.
Rena Rena May. So actually, Rena May, she did the music she's Dominican descent. And we've been friends for a long time, but she did the music for uh, Ninja Rabbit and the Mighty Grand Piton, and some other. We did like a test kind of animation thing for like Gundam, an unofficial thing that we did, and she did some music for that as well. But
That's dope.
yeah,
And big
yeah.
up
So
to her, because she has that album High out. That was her, right?
you've been doing your research. Yeah, yeah. So she's like still doing her thing, doing the music thing and all that. Like
Yeah.
amazing voice and stuff. So I should go and check her stuff out.
Yeah.
But yeah, she it's funny because even working on Grand Piton, there was like going back to like listening to people you're collaborating with. Like she made a suggestion about something, and I remember having the Connie sitting on the beach. So the main character is called Connie, and
I
kind
see
of
that.
yeah, she's actually named after one of my best friends. Like he basically had a daughter a few years ago. Like he had a stillborn,
Oh,
and she was going to be called Connie, and so I named her
that's
after.
beautiful.
Yeah, so there is a bit of a backstory to that as well. But said something about her being she was sitting on the beach, and she said, "Oh, why is she sitting there? She's not having any fun." I was like, "Yeah, that's true." So then I remembered like I took a video of when the last time I was out. I had my nephew and my sister's friend's daughter. They were running on the beach. They're having a race, and the same sort of thing. So I thought, let me put that in there, sort of thing. So that's where that came from. So again, it's like listening to people, even though she's not an animator, it's like she said something that I didn't, because when you're directing, you have so many things to think about. Sometimes you're not going to come up with all the best ideas. Like all the
Right.
best ideas are not going to be yours. Like, but yeah, what was I saying? I was talking about Ninja Rabbit. So I lost my, completely lost my train of thought.
It's okay because you're getting lost in the vision of
Yeah,
it.
no, I'm getting lost in it. I'm getting lost in it.
Because I
I'm getting
remember
into
it too. I'm remembering it as well. So I'm right there with you. It's a
it. Yeah.
nice scene, and we were talking about Rena and her
Yeah,
contribution.
no, we're talking about the music, and then you're talking about like trusting your voice.
Yeah,
And I
because you
remember when I was,
work in that show, the Ninja.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that whole thing was like basically like we did a fake intro based on something that could have existed in that time. We actually went a step further. So like Tim and Max, um, Timothy McCourt and Max Taylor, who's part of the company, they came up with this idea. What if we try and fool the internet to thinking the show was real? I didn't want to do it, and this is what I'm saying. Some of the best ideas don't actually come from you. But I was devious. I just wanted to make a film. I just wanted to animate something, put it out, be cool. But again, it's like this thing of like, well, what's the concept behind it, and how can you take it further and get people to engage in a different way? So we came up with this idea of making it this kind of lost animation that no one's seen. So when we did it, we left it on the internet for like 3 months and didn't own up to it. And before we released it, we about 6 or 7 months before we started doing fake lunch boxes and
No
fake
way.
towels. Yeah, there was like whole threads being created. Like, oh, I've never heard this before. Some people were even saying, oh, I remember seeing this as a child. It's like, no, you didn't. Like, but people really got into it. So yeah, people were really searching for it, and people were like, well, this doesn't make sense because there's no metadata before 6 months, and someone's trying to do something, but then why would they do something that's really high quality? So maybe they're not like it was actually quite scary and quite fun watching it unfold, and you can't say anything. And then we finally admitted to it. We did a big launch party, and we had people come down, and we had the show playing. We had all pictures up on the wall, and like it was like quite a big event actually for something that's like
That sounds
yeah.
like it would be a great way to raise money for your projects.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I guess at that time, and that's something that like I really liked about our collective and our company is that we just did things. It's like we didn't. It's like why not? Like
Yeah.
I remember, like even I don't know if you guys have the amazing. You should have the Amazing World of Gumball out there.
The
It's
amazing.
like the Amazing World of Gumball. So the show creator, he
Okay.
came to the event and he was like, I thought you guys were going to do like an announcement for a show. It's like he said you've done this really. It was a big event. It was like 700 people turned up, and it was like we had pictures up on the wall. We were selling T-shirts. We did sculptures and we put them on plinths. We had the lunchbox on a plinth, the original comic book. We had like a sofa area, and we had an old TV that was playing old commercials to give that Saturday morning vibe. We had some cereal next to it. So
What?
it was a big event. Like you can actually see the making of it online somewhere. I
That's
think it's on our
amazing.
website. Maybe.
Would that not
And
be? Oh, look! Someone said my kids love that show.
that's what I'm saying. People remember seeing it. Yeah. So it was a big event, and then people were like, but why would you? Because normally what would happen is that people would do a short, and they would just put it out on the internet, and you get your likes and yay and share it. But animation is a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and I'm like,
Dang.
fashion designers, artists, like contemporary artists, musicians. Every time they put out something, they always do a physical celebration, not just something online, but they get a space out, a gallery, have some canopies and drinks and stuff. No matter how big or small they do something, but animators, for some reason, don't seem the need to do that. I feel like they're satisfied with and I'm like, no, we have to celebrate what we do. And I think something that reinforced that for me is like when I went to Japan and they celebrate this stuff, like like they have exhibitions for this. So
No
yeah,
matter
anytime huh?
No matter how small, they're celebrating it.
Yeah, I mean, anytime I make something, that's what I want to do, and it didn't happen for Piton because I think the timing, like everyone was quite busy, and it was a bit of a shame they didn't have for Piton because actually I had some big ideas for that, to do it around carnival time and whatever. I still might
I think you,
do. So
yeah,
if it gets picked up as a show, then yeah, definitely, like I'll go down that route.
yeah,
Um,
really dope.
but yeah, but I mean, all that to say that with Ninja Rabbit, I had a lot of pushback on certain things or certain aspects about it, and it's like, no, the thing I go by is like, do I like this? Does this resonate with me? Does it connect to me? If it does, and I'm happy with it, then I'll put it out. I can't put something out that I don't, and I have done it before, and I feel disappointed, not because I'm like I didn't follow my instinct on it. I
Yeah,
prefer to follow my instinct and be wrong than
right.
follow someone else's instinct because at least there's no guesswork. If I follow my instinct and then it turns out to be, oh, actually that wasn't a good call, I'm okay with it because it's a decision I made. You know,
Right, right.
that's
Um,
a very long-winded answer to
that's
the question
okay.
you asked me.
No, because we learn through your thought process. A lot of people want to come out like this is all neat and packaged, but no creative process is neat and packaged. You
Yeah,
go
yeah.
so many different directions. I wanted to bring your attention before we get off on a different topic to a quote that I heard from Brad Bird, and it says, "Animation is about creating the illusion of life, and you can't create it if you don't have one." So how much does your life impact the type of animation that you do?
Yeah. you, I'm really impressed. You've done your research. Like throwing Brad Bird at me. Wow. No, Brad Bird, yeah, I think he's a massive influencer. Like so many animators out there. Like he directed The Iron Giant, and he moved into live action doing Mission Impossible. I think he did part four. I think, can't remember. He did one of them, or was it two? Um, but I think he's absolutely right, and that's something that actually came from Piton. Or
Oh,
well,
yes,
where Piton kind
that's
of
what
came from.
led me to think about it, actually.
Yeah, it was because I remember going to Japan because I think before then I really just wanted to make cool anime stuff, animation nerd kind of thing. And then I remember going to Japan and just being shocked at how I don't know why I was shocked, but I was shocked at how much they take from their own culture and put it in their, So even things like because I'm a massive Dragon Ball fan, and even in Dragon Ball, I really love the way like Akira Toriyama draws cars, and he um I remember thinking like he draws them slightly smaller than maybe like a normal scale car,
Yeah,
so it's got like a cute feel to it. But
yeah,
actually being out there, their cars are a little bit like that. I was like, oh, and just seeing the way people move and stand, and I was noticing things. I'm like, that's where that comes from. That's where that comes from, and it made me think, all right. And I think what a lot of people do, they watch anime and they copy all the tropes, but they don't actually know where it comes from.
right.
And that I made a decision, even though I came back and made Ninja Rabbit as soon as I came back. I'd already had that was already in development when I was out there. But I
Right.
decided after that, the next thing I make, I want it to be something from I can draw from my culture.
Hmm.
And I didn't, and I think with Piton, it's kind of like a London Caribbean, connection. Things. I mean, I'm not like the main character's a young girl. I'm not a young girl, but I know, my sister's a girl, and one of the writers, Gemma Weeks, who lives out there, she's, she actually grew up in London. She lives in St. Lucia now, so she has both sides, so she can give like a perspective that I can't give to it. But it's yeah, like anything I make, I want it to come somewhat from my own life or from people that look like me, and not to be like falsely progressive or like virtual signal or anything like that. I'm just being. It's like I say to people, yeah, what's kind of diverse to you is just normal to me. You know,
Right.
like the music I listen to isn't. Yeah, it's diverse and it's interesting to you, but to me, this is just normal. This is how I grew up. You know,
Yeah.
um, and that's how I want to engage with my work now, not just to kind of do stuff for the sake of doing stuff.
Yeah, your evolution has been really cool to see. I mean, to see you just plugging away at then I don't know if you were learning to animate, but you were just in the middle of like really perfecting how things moved, and you were so meticulous back then. And I think
Yeah,
one of your own quotes, here's one of your quotes. You said, on a production, things change and ideas evolve, but I'm happy to say that some of the colors here ended up in the final piece. And so you always have this idea of how you want to put it together. And I feel like you've always been this way.
yeah, and I don't think it will change. I think the hardest thing now about directing is I don't get to animate and draw as much as I used to, which is very, very frustrating. I mean, again, with a production, you do have to try and let things go, but I do want to try and work it in so that I do have some sort of hands-on approach to it again. Because I think if I don't, and I think that's with all the directors aligned. I mean, obviously, people have different directing styles. Some people like to be hands off, and when I say hands off, I mean like physically doing stuff. Because especially on bigger productions, you're just on calls all day and looking at other people's work, like this, not like this, and you're having to make decisions on the fly, which is never very comfortable.
Right.
So I want to get back to that space where I'm like, okay, here's my blueprint. This is what I've done. I've drawn this out. This is what this should look like. If you can improve upon that, then great. But it has to come from us, I think. But again, like it's a very hard thing to do when you're leading a team of 30, 40 people, whatever. So
Wow, that's a big jump. Yeah.
It adds up. It adds up. It really does add up. Like you can see why those Pixar movies and they take years to make. Like 3-4 years of like hundreds of people.
Right.
And stuff. So
to help people understand better the nuances between anime and comic. I know manga is like the Japanese version of comic books in Japan, but they have a very, I guess it's because it's the mythology of where it comes from, and the mythology of where our comics and our stories come from is very different, obviously. So what drew you away from what you would be used to seeing versus something that is different, obviously, than your own cultural imprint?
well, that is a really interesting conversation. So I guess for one, like the words manga, anime, animation. So anime is the Japanese word for animation, like technically speaking. So Toy Story would be an anime.
Mm-hmm.
But we in the West come to understand anime as being animated in Japan. Manga is the Japanese word for comic. But again, when I was growing up, the animations that we'd watch, we'd call them mangas because there was a company called Manga Entertainment, and they used to distribute all the Japanese animation. So we just call them mangas. So all these words are kind of used incorrectly, interchangeably. Some people get really pedantic about it and like, no, it's not. This is not anime. It's like, look, you know what this person means when they're saying it. Like, just right. So, but yeah, like it's something you have to look up. But some people they'll try and correct you and stuff. It's like, look, you know what I'm talking about. I know what you're talking about. Let's move on. In terms of like the style thing, and that's a really interesting question. We've actually had. I actually did a talk just around. I think we covered it a little bit. So when the whole George Floyd thing was going on, our company put out a talk with 4 of us, three of the owners of the company, myself, Tim, and Bjorn, and then we had a freelance animator who's he's black, he's French. I'm not sure what his country of origin is, but I think he grew up in France. And we were talking about just styles of animation and how there isn't really, I think it's starting to happen, but there isn't really a blueprint of how to depict black characters. Because we don't have
there's
you know what I mean? We don't have
nothing healthy anyway.
Yeah, so I mean, even like in Python again, that's another thing. Like, so one of the best conversations I had in that project was with one of the co-founders, Max Taylor. So he does what we call compositing. So compositing is basically, you have this person doing the backgrounds, this person doing the animation, this person doing colors, this person doing effects. And what the compositor does is he takes everyone's work and puts it together and makes it seamless, puts all the glows and camera moves and we were compositing a scene with Connie and her family. So her mum was doing her hair up. There's so many things I love about that scene. Her mum was doing her tying her hair on a bench while she's looking at her iPad, and her brother's kind of looking over. And his first pass at it, so I deliberately made their skin colors slightly different. So the mum is quite dark, and Connie and her brother are like more kind of my complexion, and I guess her dad would be like your complexion. And when he did the pass in it, they all started looking kind of the same color, and I was like, no,
Oh, interesting.
right, yeah. So I said, no, this is wrong, and he was like, oh, okay. Now he's using the same techniques he would use to composite white characters or lighter skin characters.
Of course.
So he's not doing something wrong, but then he went through it again. He went through it again. He goes, you know what? He said, you know what? I just realized I do not know how to comp black characters.
That's
And I said,
fascinating.
right. And I said, neither do I. So let's learn. Yeah, because I don't know.
Crazy.
Right, because and it sparked up this conversation. It's like, yeah, it's true. Like we've all learned how to do this kind of art, but we're doing it for a specific, tone of skin. We're not used to, because if you have a black character in an animation, you usually have just one or two, and they always have the kind of same tone, which is fine,
Yeah, at least it's there.
Right. When you have like characters and they're all like slightly different shades and stuff, it's like, wait, how do you like these people? Like there was actually a really I used to watch a series called This Is Us, and there was actually a really interesting, I don't know if you've ever watched it, but basically it's like about a white family who's adopted black.
Yes.
And the mum was really struggling to take photos because she's like, right, if I take a photo of him in this light, then he comes out too dark. But if I do it in this light, he comes out fine, but then we're all washed out. And she ended up having to cut him out of a photo and put them together. But it's like, her way of trying to understand,
I know.
And I thought it was such a really good,
yes.
way of tackling that kind of subject. So with this project, so we were going through it, and I remember I had a picture of my aunt and my cousin who were kind of the similar tone, and it was on a photo. I said, all right, look, try and follow this. I said, her mum is this color, this person's this color, and he went through it and he nailed it. He got it.
That's amazing.
And now, every time we have black characters on the screen, he knows exactly how to light them and what to do and what not to do. Like he even sent me, I think even Apple are doing this thing where you have to calibrate their cameras to make sure there's a whole history in it, like to make sure that blacks don't come out too dark or whatever. It's just like they look how they look in real life, sort of thing. Same as you would do real light skin counterparts. So that was a really interesting conversation, and even that scene again, when the mum's doing the hair and stuff, and I was talking to one of the animators, Amanda, who's Danish, and she no, she's not Danish.
She's not black.
Right. And she's not from London either.
Okay,
right?
there you go.
But she animated that scene, and again, it's one of those things where I'm like, no, the hair's a twist out. So she did that, and I sent all these videos of these black women doing the stuff, and she draws hands beautifully, and she did it. So again, it's that scene of the thing that makes that kind of scene so important to me is because we're all learning something that we wouldn't have learned if I hadn't made a project like that.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
I just keep
so she's learned something. Yeah, he's learned something, and it's like that is like, for me, what animation is about. Like having people from different walks of life come together to be able to tell a story, but also learn from that story as well. And that for me, like, is like almost like the the base of the project to be like. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we talk about that scene all the time. That's like my anecdote from that.
That's so crazy. I can't believe that you aren't going to continue this project. After having this conversation, I think you have to rethink it.
Listen, I think people are getting fed up with me, man, because it's like, what's happening with Python? It's like, but we had. I don't want to say with who, but we did have a deal for a year. Like, so we've got a script for it. We've got a development Bible, all that kind of stuff. We did have a deal and it fell through. So we're just looking for partners. So we'll be doing. I think we're changing our strategy of how to approach this, and we have been speaking to people. So our head of development, Lisa, like she's just reaching out to people and stuff and putting in front of them. So we do have a few meetings lined up for January and stuff, and people to talk to and see how we can do it. So yeah, if I can make that show,
I pray on that for you. I want that for you. I really want that for you. Please share with me and the audience, what is it that you thirst for in life still?
Wow. What do I?
So when you say thirst, it's not like, yeah, you kind of want this, because I'm talking like if you've ever been thirsty, you know that you don't drink almost anything to quench that thirst. So what is it that's like that for you in your life right now?
You're talking beyond professionally.
Just however it means.
This is turning into a therapy session.
Well, no, you can attach it to like your legacy, your legend, your personal legend. You know, what is it that you really want from all of this thing called life, from business? But if you see it as therapy, by the way, you're welcome.
I guess just knowing I made some sort of a difference in the industry. I think it's such a weird thing, because I think that question is something I've asked. It's something I've never really sat and thought about. But I honestly feel like Python. Again, I'm not a social justice warrior or like an activist or anything like that, and I don't want to pretend like I am.
Right.
I do feel like me creating Python has actually made me understand just exactly what the power of this medium is. Like, just not just to me, but to other people as well. And like I said, like, yeah, I got, it wasn't just St. Lucia that was going crazy about it. It was all Caribbean islands and beyond that as well.
I felt the same way when I saw it.
I had people from Indonesia contacting me and stuff, and it was just more the idea of, like, again, we are allowed to tell stories about ourselves. And it's crazy when you have like people thinking that you can't. And I was the same. Like, I couldn't see it until one day. It's like, why not? Why am I not telling stories about where I come from? It doesn't matter if it becomes mainstream or not. So I guess if I can have that kind of influence on people, like if someone, there might be a kid in St. Lucia right now who's literally, right, I'm going to start animating because they've watched this thing. I think that's and if I never make Python, if it never becomes a series, but someone else comes and makes their series and that becomes a big thing, then it's done its job, I guess I want to make some sort of a difference in the industry or change how people see things. And I think I've, not just me personally, but I think our group, The Line, has done that to some extent. And I think, because the other business partners, like they're 5 white guys. So, but again, it does feel like, and again, this is one of the things where it wasn't planned in that way. It's just like, we're 6 guys, we like each other, we work well together, and it just so happened that this is the group that we formed. And I am fortunate that I have a group of people that are like, not just my ideas, but anyone in the studio, if they've come up with something, they get to make it,
Yeah.
So I guess, yeah, like just making some sort of difference,
I think
beyond money and anything like that. Like if I'm making a difference and speaking to people and influencing people and showing them that you can actually have a good career doing this stuff, then yeah.
that's beautiful. I think you're already making that impact. It's just going to keep the ripple effect is probably enlarging, and that's great.
Thank you.
And in your own words, on to the next project, and wherever it takes you, my journey continues. So I wish you continued success. I thank you for talking to us here. How do people reach you if you want to be reached?
You can go on my Instagram. I have been quite bad on my Instagram, but you can DM me on my Instagram. So it's Libra Bear on Instagram, or through the Line Animation on Instagram as well. Yeah, and I think our emails and stuff is on the website. Like people always find a way to reach me if they need.
Find you. Amazing. You've been a wonderful guest. You're humble, you're thoughtful, you're considerate, and you're groundbreaking. And even if you don't mean to be. And I think that's the thing with Black artists and Black entrepreneurs that are they're answering questions that or solving problems that we didn't really necessarily know that it was there. It's in our blind spots. And so you may not see yourself as the person who would walk through the street with their fists raised, but your presence is doing exactly what the changes we need to see is needed for. So I'm grateful. I came in touch with you in that way and learned a lot about animation, and you opened my eyes, and I hope you've opened the eyes of more people who are watching today or in the future. So thank you, Wesley Louie. You are amazing.
Thank you,
I'm so glad we could do this interview. And, if you want to advertise on this platform, Business Takeout really does work to inspire Black wealth and Black entrepreneurship. And feel free to email them at info@businesstakeout.com. And don't forget that when you thirst for things in life, it moves you forward. So take the step and let the adventures begin. Thanks for watching the Cocktale Hour. I'm LA Wade. See you later.
If you enjoy our programming and want to help support Black entrepreneurship, please donate today. www.businesstakeout.com/donate.